Welcome back, guys. So I'm super excited to announce a new series for the channel. I'm calling it Back to the Basics. And what this whole series is going to be about is answers to questions that I wish that I knew from the beginning. What is the difference between a job site table saw, a contractor's saw, or a professional cabinet saw? The foundation of any profession is built on the fundamentals, and that's what this is all about. And if you were to try to build and grow your skill set off of a partial foundation, well, you know how that would go. And this series will not just be for beginner woodworkers. What I found whenever I went back to revisit some of the basics or the fundamentals is that I had actually forgotten about a lot of these things. And because of that, over the years, I have overcomplicated things. And after you've watched this video and you have a suggestion or a tool in mind that you would like to know more about, drop it down into the comments and we will break that tool down from the beginning so we will know every fundamental aspect of that tool so you can master it. But before we can take a deeper dive into table saws in general, we need to know the difference between the three different types of table saws. Let me tell you about it. So overall, these three types of table saws are designed to do the same thing. They're saws, they're designed to cut wood, but there are differences in each one of these that sets them apart, and those differences are the things that you need to know when deciding which one of these saws do you need for what you're doing. So some of the main topics that we're going to be talking about with each one of these saws are going to be the P's. I'm just calling them that because it's the way that it worked out. It's going to be precision, it's going to be price, it's going to be portability, and last but not least, it's going to be power. We'll also be talking about the different accessories, the different ways that they're made, the durability, and all of that stuff is very important. So let's go ahead and get started with this job site saw. Okay, so this job site saw is what most of us start out with as woodworkers, and it may turn out that it's all that you ever need. Just because this thing is smaller and cheaper does not mean that it cannot accomplish fine woodworking. Actually, the two pieces that I have back here in the back, we have the Mad Hatter, the split dresser. Then we also have down the rabbit hole, the dresser with the hole right in the middle with tons of different angles. Both those crazy pieces of furniture with tons and tons of different angles were made using this table saw in my garage. Beside the price point, the reason why we start off with saws like this is because we do not have the space for these larger saws. Job site saws are smaller and they are a lot lighter. You can pick these things up, you can move them around. They'll range between 40 and 70 pounds, and usually you can pick them up in a package with a portable stand. So hence the name, a job site saw, taking it from one job site to the next. Portability is its key feature. And in a lot of cases where portability is a key feature, they have traded out certain aspects about the tool to actually make it lighter. So in the case of the table saw, most job site saws, you're going to have a lot of plastic around this thing. It is going to be smaller. And the work surface is not going to be the only thing that's smaller, but the motor itself will be smaller, which in most cases means less power. Your standard job site saw is set up for 120 volt typical household current. But what I found is you have to be careful whenever you're shopping for a job site saw, because a lot of these companies, they like to throw horsepower numbers out there that is honestly really not achievable with 120 volt current. So let's say like on this one, they claim that it's a 2 horsepower motor that spins at 5,000 RPM. The way that they determine that is kind of deceptive because they have came up with this number without feeding any type of material into it. So the important part is really not that it can get up to 5,000 RPM, but can it sustain that while you're running a piece of white oak through here? So sadly, you can't always go by those numbers. And then we get down to price. And this is another reason why most beginners start out with a saw like this. It's what we can afford. Job site table saws without a stand will run you anywhere from $200 to $500. Like I mentioned before, just because this saw costs less than some of the others does not mean that it's not perfect for what you need it for. And one of the main differences that you're going to find in a job site saw, and again, this is what makes it more portable, is the tabletop itself. Most of these job site saws, the table itself will be made out of aluminum. And this is another thing that allows it to be portable. Our other two saws, they're going to be made out of cast iron, and we all know cast iron is heavy. And one of my favorite things is how easily you can incorporate this into your workbench. I actually made this workbench in my garage and designed it to fit this saw. Another thing that you're going to be giving up with this job site saw is precision. So since the top is made out of aluminum, it makes it more susceptible for dents and things like that. Actual accessories that come with this thing are a lot cheaper made, leaving you room for error. And the fence is super light and the locking mechanisms are made of plastic. So if you ever see me in a video pull out a tape measure and actually physically measure the distance between the blade and the fence, it's because of this, and this is what I started on. I can never count on constant accuracy. But overall, job site table saws are great. It's the reason why I still have mine. It can do one thing that these other two cannot. I can easily load this thing up, fit it through doorways, and take it anywhere that I want it. And even though this next one is called a contractor saw, most contractors are going to be using something like this. But let's go check it out. And next on the list is going to be our contractor table saw. And this is an old table saw. Actually, one of the first videos on the channel was me restoring this. It was all roached out, covered in rust, all that stuff, you know, because this is cast iron. But even though this is an older saw, the things that make this a contractor's table saw, it's going to be the same. And again, like I had said, all of these saws are designed to do the same things. They can all rip wood with these miter gauges or sleds. You can make cross cuts, you can make angle cuts, you can even make bevel cuts on all of these saws. But even though all of these saws can perform the same function, let me show you the key differences between your contractor's table saw and your job site table. You can see that there is a difference in size. You have a much larger work surface and you have a cast iron top. The fence itself is more heavy duty and the rails that it rides on will be heavier. But by bulking this saw up the way that it is, comes with the price. Not just the price of the saw, but the weight. Contractor table saws will range in weight from 200 to 300 pounds. So yes, these things are heavy. And even if you plan on just leaving this in your shop, you're still going to need something to move this thing around on. Again, another one of my first videos was after I restored this thing, I got tired of moving it around because it's heavy, and I built a low profile base for this thing. Another big difference between a job site table saw and a contractor's table saw is that in most cases, a job site saw cannot handle a dado stack, or at least they're not supposed to. The arbor isn't long enough for all of these different blades. In most contractor saws, the arbor is actually designed to handle a dado stack and may actually come with different dado plates. So let's talk about power. Your contractor's table saw will typically have a 1.5 to a 2.5 horsepower motor, and a lot of the times they'll be set up with the option to run the saw off of 120 volts or 240. Again, given the option, I would go with the 240 volts just to get the max performance from this machine. And the weight increase from the job site saw to the contractor saw is not only just going to be the motor and the cast iron, but it will also be what is on the inside of this saw. So at the contractor grade, you start to see everything become more heavy duty because these things are designed to be capable of handling thicker material and accomplishing more demanding tasks. These things are made for work and to be used almost every day. And you can see the obvious difference between the two saws, but we still have some lighter metal leaves here. The rail system is still aluminum. Yes, it's beefier, but it is still aluminum, as well as our fence. But the upgrades are definitely noticeable. And they come with a price. So where we were at a 200 to 500 price range with our job site saw, when you get to this level of saw, that's where you really see the price increase. So typically they will start at 500. They can range from anywhere from $500 to $1,200. So this is the point where you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? How much am I going to be using this thing? And how long will it take for it to pay for itself? Then we have our cabinet saw. So this is the big boy. This is the top of the line of the table saws. These things are made for everyday use. They are considered industrial saws. Everything about a cabinet saw should be heavy duty and made to withstand the abuse of everyday use. One of the first things that you will notice is everything on this main table is cast iron. The rails themselves have now gone from aluminum to steel. The main part of the fence system is also steel. It has an adjustable aircraft aluminum attachment, but the main support for this is steel. You'll also notice that the cabinet saw has a cabinet, and this is to protect the motor and all of the internal workings of a table saw, and that will also be beefed up. You'll notice that it's easier to raise, lower, and tilt the blade just because of the way that everything is designed. So the design of cabinet saws are made expecting that someone will be at this thing all day, every day using it. So that's when you'll notice that the cabinet saws will have more accessories to make everything more convenient. You start getting into the higher grade fences, different options like built-in dust collection systems, and even large precision accessories like sliding crosscut sleds. These saws are designed to be the workhorses, to handle the large sheets of wood, the large slabs of wood. But like anything else, it's give and take. Whenever you get into your cabinet saws and they are built with this level of quality, what you give up is the portability. Yes, you can buy cabinet saw bases, but these things are huge. So getting them through doorways, things like that, you better call your buddies because you're going to be doing some lifting. And the weight. Now with a machine this size, we're not looking at 50 to 70 pounds like the job site. We're getting up to the 500 to 700 pound range. That's a big difference. But there's also a big difference in what this machine can do and what the job site saw can do. So what about power? How much power does it take to run a machine like this? Essentially, the blades are the exact same size in all of these saws, and they pretty much spin at around the exact same RPM. The difference is being able to sustain that RPM while you're working. That's where your cabinet saws really start to step it up with the motor size. And at the time that I got this saw, it's actually what sold me on it was the motor. So whenever you get into a saw this size, that's when you should start seeing motor sizes from 3 to 5 horsepower. They will not even have the option, or at least they should not have the option, to run off of a standard plug-in or 120. All of these saws should have a dedicated 220 to 240 circuit. And then we have precision. We worked our way up from the job site saw where things are more likely to become loose. You may not have that exact precision, to our contractor where everything's starting to get more stable and solid, to this saw. The precision on these saws, to me, is what is the most important factor whenever you are deciding to buy one. And to show you a quick example of why the precision differs between these three saws, let's compare the 3 fences and the 3 miter gauges that came with each saw. So here are the 3 fences that came with the 3 different saws. So we have our rigid. Okay, this thing is super light. Everything on the end is plastic. The viewfinder is adjustable, but is plastic also. Super light aluminum. I'd say it weighs less than 5 pounds. Then we have our contractor saw, so the Delta fence. Okay, so this is where it starts to beef it up a little bit. Again, this is aluminum. It's just thicker aluminum. They're using a thicker gauge of material. The base of this has now gone to metal. So we're no longer at plastic like we were over here. Everything is metal, even your tension knob. And then on the Harvey cabinet saw, this thing is a monster. It is all steel. We get into high-low settings, and anything, including these little knobs, will be aircraft aluminum. The aluminum that is on this adjustment high-low fence, the gauge of the material used is super thick, and everything will be designed for precision. And I would say that this fence alone at least weighs 20 to 25 pounds. So you can see just in the fences how quality could be affected. Now let's take a look at our miter gauges. And here is a side-by-side of the 3 miter gauges that came with the 3 different types of saws. So we have our job site, our contractor, and then our cabinet. So first I'll show you these first 2 miter gauges up close. And again, these are the types of things that make up the price difference between $500 and $1,000. So this is the rigid. This is all aluminum, super lightweight. If you drop this, you're in trouble. This is the Delta. We're starting to get a little beefier. We get into cast and a lot better of a locking system for angles. The T-track rails and the job site, this is aluminum. So you have aluminum on aluminum. So whenever you're tightening this thing down, it's a lot more likely to strip. Whereas on the contractor, you have steel on steel. And this is where the cabinet saws enter a league of their own. So again, this is the Delta contractor. And like I said before, this is an older one, so I'm sure they look shinier now. But the general quality is going to be the same. This is the miter gauge that came with the Harvey saw. Now everything is starting to be based on quality and precision. And that's when you start getting the built-in features and things with your different accessories, like having extensions being a lot more heavy duty because they are designed to handle heavy duty material. Things like this is why you pay what you pay for cabinet saws. And that gets to the last point, the price. So what is the price point of cabinet saws? A good quality cabinet saw can range anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 and up. So that is your difference in the 3 different types of saws. So you need to use that information in deciding which type is best for you. If you're a weekend warrior or just getting started out, start off with a job site table saw and then you can work your way up. But if you're going to be doing this every day, day in and day out, then you need to spend the extra money to buy a quality precision saw. But everyone's situation is different, so their decision may be different. So now that you know the differences in these saws and what to look for, maybe you'll feel a little bit better about buying one or buying your next one, and you won't have as many questions. So the next part of this series, we're going to stick with table saws, except we are going to take a deep dive into what all a table saw can actually do. And I think that you're going to be surprised by what you learn. Like for instance, did you know that unless you're like a finished carpenter that's going to be cutting a ton of different bevels every day, you don't even really need a miter saw in your shop. The reason why we do this is for convenience. So if that sparks your curiosity, make sure to check out the next episode of Back to the Basics. Until next time, guys, we'll see ya.